Hello and welcome to Country Matters. Tomorrow evening we've got friends coming round for dinner and we've decided to cook wild woodpigeon. The woodpigeon is classed as an agricultural pest in the United Kingdom, with many millions creating damage to agricultural crops. Despite being a handsome bird, they make excellent eating. So I'm looking at this book on pigeon shooting by the late Archie Coates, who was probably the first professional pigeon shooter in the United Kingdom. There are many recipes in the back of this book, and we've decided to have roast pigeon with bacon and red currant jelly, which sounds delicious. So the only way we're going to get these birds in the oven is to go out and shoot them ourselves. So I've arranged to go out tomorrow morning with local man Michael Neat. By the time I arrived, Michael was already there scouting for pigeons. I first asked him to explain about the decoys we'd be using. So, decoys first. What about that one?
This is Italian made plastic shell decoy. Very, very popular. Mostly used over the country than any other decoy really, because they're so portable, they all float together. Yeah. That's an Italian one.
And then we come on to the full-bodied, is it?
Full-bodied rubber decoy. These are very popular again, very much bulkier than the other one. They do get squashed sometimes, so 10 minutes or 20 minutes in some hot water and they're puffed back out again. But that is a very good decoy.
They certainly look more lifelike, don't they?
Yeah, they do look like a real pigeon. Quite high detail, graphic detail on these, but a bit more bulkier to carry.
Yep. Then obviously you use birds that you shot the previous day.
Yes, they are the cream of the decoys.
Right.
If you can lay your hands on them.
Yeah.
If you can keep them in good condition, birds that are missing feathers on the back, white, doesn't look realistic.
No.
But you set them up on sticks, up on a cradle.
Yep.
So they, try and get them looking as realistic as you possibly can.
Great.
But they're very good.
And then here's another full-bodied. How different is that one from the last one we looked at?
This one is a HH decoy. You actually insert a balloon. You blow up a balloon to go into the side, inside the hole there.
Yeah.
And it fixes to a little stick. It stands up.
Right.
As you can see, there's a lot more paint detail on these. They are quite expensive.
Yeah.
But a lot of people use them because you can collapse them down very thin, and once you blow them up with a balloon, it's it looks like a real pigeon almost.
Okay. Now this looks an old one. What's
This is a long history behind that decoy. It's a former decoy of a great, well-known shooting person, Chris Craddock.
Oh right.
And
an expert.
Yes, they've seen some time over the years. About 40 years old. Some of those are handmade. And he's hand painted them. They're made out of fiberglass.
Fiberglass, yes.
So he's had those for some years. Right. But they work on the day.
I really appreciate you asking me to come today, because we've got some friends coming for dinner, and we'd found a recipe in the old Archie Coates book on pigeon shooting. But it's a long time since I've actually been shooting. Now I'm using a traditional 12-bore English side-by-side. I notice you're using a different gun. What are you using, Michael?
Yes, I use a Marook MK38 trap gun. It's 32-inch barrels with 3/4 full choke. It's a traditional clay pigeon gun.
Right.
But it's a very pointable gun compared to the side-by-side.
Because it's over and under.
Because it's an over and under. You've got a big forend to grab hold of. If the day gets hot, the barrels can get very warm. Unless you're wearing a glove with a side-by-side, you can actually burn your hands.
But it's a traditional 12-bore.
It's a traditional 12-bore. You'll see this if you go to a clay pigeon shoot. You'll see virtually 99–100% of everybody will be using one of these.
Right.
I mean, they're very, very sound guns, made in Japan. But the systems they know, chrome barrels and all sorts now inside. I mean, it's a fantastic gun. Fantastic.
Excellent.
I would love to shoot enough pigeons to wear that one out. If you load your gun, I'll load mine, but what we should do is only shoot one person at a time.
Yeah.
Because there has been some terrible accidents where two people have stood up or to shoot. One person stood up, the other person has sat down, swung through on a bird, and the fatal accident happens.
Absolutely.
So if we load our guns, and one person at a time shoots, if you take the first shot, Paul.
Well, we've had 2 or 3, so we just need a few more just to finish the day.
Safety back. I'll stand my gun there.
Safety on.
A safe spot. And just keep our eyes open.
With a crop such as oilseed rape, it wasn't long before another pigeon came in.
Shot. Good shot. Nice clean kill. That's what we want.
What do you do with the pigeon you shoot, Michael?
A majority of the pigeons I shoot will actually go to the game dealers. Obviously, if I shoot a big number of pigeons on a day, it's just too many to dress for the freezer for myself.
Yes.
But I do eat a lot of pigeons myself.
Do you shoot all year round at pigeon, or?
I try not to shoot right in the breeding season if I can. Obviously, if a farmer is getting a lot of damage, I should go out. And what I generally do, if a pair of birds decoys, I'll only try and shoot one of them. So if there is a dependent bird on the nest, the other bird will feed that bird. Or I would just stand there literally and fire shots to push the birds away from the field.
Yes.
And try not to shoot any birds at all. For the simple reason is I know they're a vermin bird.
Yes.
But it's not fair on the birds to have the sort of young on the nest. I'll just take this one a minute. One single bird coming in with the decoys.
After we had shot a few, it was time to pick them up.
Gemma, fetch it. Fetch it.
This is where a well-trained dog comes into its own. There she goes.
Yeah, there she is. She picked him.
In a tallish crop such as this, it would be easy to overlook 1 or 2.
Gemma, good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Oh, nice fat bird. Come on. Gemma, good girl. Come on.
So at the end of a successful day's shooting, we've now got the pigeon to prepare. And the first job is to pluck them. And that's what I'm going to do now. It only takes about 5 minutes to do a pigeon. And first of all, I'm taking the breast feathers off. And many pigeon shooters actually just cut the breasts off the bird and just use the breasts. But being a traditionalist, I love to see them prepared properly, completely plucked, so that you're working on a whole carcass, the same as you would with a chicken. Many people are frightened by plucking, but it's no difficult task. 5 minutes to do a pigeon. The end feathers of the wing are the most difficult, and your fingers do get hardened to pulling those out. But if you've got a problem, a small pair of pliers is all that's required. I remember a number of years ago going to stay with some friends who was in charge of a nature reserve, and we were having dinner in the evening, and I remember asking them if the pigeons we were eating were wild wood pigeon, and they said no, in fact they'd come off the nature reserve, but they were just as good, feral pigeons. So this is another bird plucked. We just fold the wings back, so you've got it nicely presented. We'll cut the legs off. We shall take the head off at the neck there, and we shall make an incision just below the base here, and a couple of fingers in, take out all the innards, and then right on the cavity of the backbone on each corner you've got the lungs, and you just scrape those out, and she's ready then for cooking. A nicely presented bird. This is the time of year when house martins arrive. Once back in the country, having reclaimed last year's nest site, they immediately set about repairing the winter's damage. If you sit down not too far from a likely looking puddle, you may be lucky enough to watch them collecting mouthfuls of mud. Swallows too need mud and can be told apart by their deeper blue colour and red throat, while house martins have paler backs and white throats. The pied wagtail uses the puddle to grab a meal. The mud must be just right. Too wet and it will fall off the nest. Too dry and it won't stick. They keep at it until the nest is complete. Everywhere birds are at their most pristine, all in their spring livery, so it will give them the best chance of attracting a mate. Of course, there are some birds that nest very early. Rooks start to build their nests as early as March and are one of the earliest birds to lay their eggs. The noise around the rookery is one of the nicest sounds of the countryside. A true country bird, the rook is more of a friend to the farmer than they are given credit for, eating masses of slugs and insects that can cause harm to crops throughout the year. By now, these nests have well-grown chicks in them, and I'll be looking to see how beautiful close-ups like these were achieved in a future programme. This is the main rubbish tip at Gloucester, and we are here to meet up with Brian Bailey once again, this time to catch gulls. To do this, he's using a cannon net. First, a polythene strip is unrolled as a base. This will be for the net to rest on and stop any rubbish from snagging it. The net is then fed out on top of this plastic. Once it's untangled, it is very carefully laid out. Brian cannot afford for anything to go wrong. When he is happy, it will be hooked up to the cannons. Brian is in charge, and it is up to him to check that everything is perfect.
You don't roll the net up at this stage and take a bit of time. When you fire it, it'll get caught on the objects of dirt. That's the reason for putting it down on this sacking, of course, so that we don't pick up as little as possible the drop off of the ship. Okay.
He knows only too well that he'll only get one chance today.
Running the dropper out, go right the length of the net.
The dropper is the main electric cable that takes the power to the cannon firing mechanism.
Right. Well, we set the net out, as you can see, on the polythene. Now we need to put the actual firing mechanism, the cannons in place. And this is quite critical that the angles that you get on this because we're actually going to fire over birds in the air. So what I'll do is put the cannon in roughly all the way along, and then I'll line it up from one end. If you're out in the field, you'd actually dig these cannons in so that the gulls or birds that you're catching couldn't see them. But of course now, it doesn't really matter, there's so much rubbish around. Hopefully they'll think that our cannons are just rubbish. So we need some rocks on there just to give us some stable, make it stable when the thing goes off. And then we can come along with our what we call our dropper lead, and connect those together at a later date when everybody's cleared off the site. So we're ready then to put those in. So that's that one. We need another one. Hopefully we won't have to wait too long before we get a catch, but it could be a couple of hours. Just depends on how fast the gulls decide that they want to come back in. We've got two of them out there getting their bed together. You see, they're going to lie down in a minute. Someone's going to say to me, why haven't you got a pair of strippers? And that's you start off with all these things, and then the more you've got on these tips, the more you've got to lose, unfortunately. We're looking at perhaps 300,000 down on the banks of the River Severn. So, as I say, if we catch 50 today, we'll be happy. If we catch, say, 150, we'll be, ecstatic. And if we catch, say, 250, we should be panicking. Cup of coffee time now, I think, but the thing is now what we're going to do is we're a little bit close to these birds. It's always a compromise really, as we say on these tips. The way we can fire, we have to fire with the wind behind us. We can't fire towards any buildings, of course, in case anything does go wrong. So it's just playing a waiting game now, and hopefully that the birds will come. Some people go to Florida, don't they, for their holidays in their pastimes, and they go to these nice places, but here you will, you see. What better than sat on the rubbish tip in Gloucester?
Once the net is set, rubbish is tipped in front as bait, and quite quickly the birds start to gather.
Are you clear?
Yes.
Okay, the net's in. I've got
Only when Brian is
armed,
happy
I'll go
will he fire the net.
Now, you still clear?
Yeah, one bird's on
Okay,
the net.
right. Nice one.
It is important that the birds are taken out of the net as quickly and as smoothly as possible. This will lessen the stress for the birds. All the data collected will be sent off to the British Trust for Ornithology, and a check can be kept on this area. Because of Brian's work here, a population decline would soon be noticed. Hessian sacks are used. These tend to cause less damage to the feathers and allow the birds to breathe. Only one is put in each sack.
Yeah, pop them in the sack, and then as long as they're in the sack they're okay. 3 or 4 hours then. On a warm day you have to watch it, but it's worked reasonably well today. We've probably got 80 to 100 birds here, so it's not matter now of work as quick as we can to get them out of the net. They're quite happy in there. It's just a matter of working them out. keeping your hands to the back, because I tell you what, they could give you a real good peck with that bill, as good as you get them. It just shows that the gulls can give as good as they get, because that's extracting out and extracting and actually ringing at the same time. Steve here is not so bad, he's being handed his gulls. I'm going and collecting my thing. We do make sure is that we've got our tetanus jabs and everything like that up together before we start going on these places. So it is it's a lot of blood there, but it's not much, it's just more blood than anything else.
Once in the dark, they soon settle down. Within a very short time, all the birds are bagged. Brian nets here throughout the year, and because the Severn Estuary is one of the largest gull roosts in the country, this tip is the ideal location. Now the hard work begins.
No, you can do it, that's all right. "72 is a 9, 010.
That one. 10.
First, the bird is measured.
These rings are made to
181. We measure the beaks of the bird because it gives us an indication of the size of the bird. 506. A large deep bill like this one probably means it's a male.
72.
The next person then weighs the bird. This is a good indication of its health.
So here we are. I'm on the end of the line. They're being ringed, measured, weighed, and I'm the gentleman who's going to fit these individual colour rings on. These are exclusive numbers to our group. In actual fact, we are working, you may see some other birds, we are working with a G, an H and an F. So if we've got a G or an H or an F on the end, we know that that's our, we know that in actual fact is our scheme. So I'm just waiting for a bird to come along now and pop this on.
The rings are very bird friendly and cause no interference to its daily life.
158.
Stand up for us.
If you'll find a dead bird with a ring on, first remove it from the bird and send it to the address written on the metal ring, mentioning where and when you found it. This information will be a great help to the BTA.